Saturn in the third house has everything to do with your willpower, your steadiness, and your affection. So Saturn in the third house means incredibly strong determination. Or maybe that means you're just easily bored and disinterested. Saturn in the third house indicates great reliability. Or maybe that just means you're really predictable. Saturn in the third house indicates a deeply unselfish person. Or maybe that just means you don't really like yourself. So how do you know whether Saturn in the third represents the positive versions or the negative versions of these three things? That depends entirely on how positive or negative Saturn is in your chart. So I will explain how to figure that out at the end of this video. And also, if you're not the mathematical type, I figure it out for you in the reports that I offer. So if you want, you can go to my website, victorcara.com, and order one of my reports, and it will tell you exactly how positive or negative, and therefore how much stress to put on either the positive or the negative traits. So because Saturn in the third house is all about willpower, if it's positive, it indicates a person with incredible determination. The willpower is very strong. They focus on something and they stay focused on it. They keep their determination fixed on their tasks and their objectives and their goals. So they can accomplish really significant goals. And in that sense, they have a great deal of intelligence. The strong willpower implies also strong intelligence in the sense of knowing how to get things done, knowing how to accomplish your goals. The negative ramification of this, however, which shows up the more negative Saturn is in your chart, is that you're just unmotivated and bored. You're disinterested in things. You put your attention on one thing and nothing else interests you. So most of the time, you're just really bored because you don't get that much opportunity to engage in the thing that you really wanted to engage in. We're interpreting that way because Saturn's negative in this chart. A positive Saturn in the third house describes a person who is extremely reliable. You can depend on them. They hold through on their promises. So they're very trustworthy and honorable. But the same trait in a negative sense means, well, you're just predictable. You might be described even as typical. You're not surprising. You're therefore not that interesting. So the more that Saturn is negative in this chart, the more that it's not really as reliable as it is just predictable. In other words, this trait of reliability, instead of having a positive impact on your life, it has the opposite impact. It has a negative impact. Saturn in the third house has a huge effect on affection, and that might come as a surprise to you because neither Saturn nor the third house really is about affection. But guess what? The third house is about selfishness, and Saturn is about limitation and restriction. So Saturn in the third house really restricts and controls and takes the emotion out of selfishness. So the end result of Saturn in the third house is unselfishness or affectionate nature. So with a positive Saturn in the third house, the person is actually quite cooperative. They're not selfish. They're affectionate. They care about other people. But the negative side of not being selfish is not taking care of yourself, not even liking yourself. And so if Saturn is in the third house with negative positivity, then that is more what's actually happening here. Instead of unselfishness, it's really unself-caring, self-loathing, self-criticism. Again, how do you know how much of the negative traits or how much of the positive traits you should expect for yourself or for a chart that you're trying to read? It all depends on assessing the positivity or negativity of Saturn. Everybody will have some kind of mixture of the positive and negative traits that come out more or less in different situations. But to know the ratio of that mixture, you need to know the ratio of positivity to negativity in Saturn itself. So as you see, the interpretation of any planet in any house really depends an awful lot on the positivity or negativity of that planet. So now let's go over how you would figure that out. First of all, the most basic consideration is the sign dignity. I've recently published 3 or 4 videos on this exact topic. Saturn in the first house in Aries is not the same as Saturn in the first house in Libra, and it would be ridiculous to think that it is. It's because Saturn in Aries is in fall and Saturn in Libra is exalted. And there's this whole spectrum of dignity in between exaltation and fall. And if you want to know that in detail, check those videos to figure out how you calculate dignity. In addition to the sign dignity that a planet has in a house, you also want to think about how the house itself is either advantageous or deleterious to the planet's dignity. If the planet is a malefic or the sun or the nodes, then it is at an advantage if it's in houses 3, 6, 10, or 11, but it's in a disadvantage if it's in 1, 4, 5, or 9. And if it's at an advantage, you just give a bonus to its dignity. I give 25%. And if it's at a disadvantage, you subtract some of its dignity. I subtract 25%. If it's one of the other planets, the benefics, along with the moon or Mercury, then the advantageous or bonus houses are 1, 4, 5, 9, and 10. And the disadvantageous houses are 3 and 6. Finally, the third step is to consider the lordship of this planet. If a planet is the lord of certain houses, then it gets a bonus to its dignity. If it's the lord of other houses, then it might get a detriment. So the best house to be the lord of is the first, because the lord of the first wants to protect the whole chart because the whole chart belongs to it. Also, it's very positive to be the lord of a trine, the 5th or the 9th. And it's also somewhat positive to be the lord of the 4th or the 10th. It's disadvantageous, however, to be the lord of the 6th, 8th, or 12th. There's a loophole about this. If the lord of the 6th, 8th, or 12th is occupying the 6th, 8th, or 12th, then it's not a disadvantageous thing. It's an advantageous thing. And what you would subtract, you instead add to the dignity. So if it's confusing, or you just want to see exactly how I do it, don't worry. You can do that. You can go to my website, victorcara.com, click into the report section, and then you have an option to get either just the basic chart, or you can also get the subdivisions. So please consider doing that. And also, please, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave me a comment, let me know what you're thinking. Also, just you doing that helps YouTube spot this video and show it to other people. So I would really appreciate that. Thank you very much.